So it's looking like CNBC might know why people aren't getting married today. Um, I can say personally, a lot of my friends, a lot of my family members aren't getting married. But let's see if they got a good answer on why they think it may not be happening. Let's take a look.
No one knows exactly when the first marriage took place. People have been getting married for thousands of years. It's an ancient institution. But for some people, it's perhaps a bit too ancient.
89% of the world's population now live in countries with falling marriage rates. This is especially pronounced in the richest countries. Among the 38 OECD nations, most recorded between 7 and 10 marriages per 1,000 people in 1970. By 1995, this fell to around 5 to 7 marriages,
That's a
and
big
it
drop.
continues to plummet today.
So, why is this happening, and will it spell the end of marriage as we know it?
A stable
I'm gonna give my opinion first. At least in my opinion, I think it might be some of the laws in terms of the court system when people have to split off or divorce from each other. I think that's an issue. I think also I think people as I think people like men and women, they just no longer seem to see eye to eye anymore. So I feel like that might play a role. So those are just my opinions, but let's see what they say.
marriage has often been associated with financial stability. Married households in the US hold significantly higher wealth than cohabiting couples or singles. But despite this, the marriage rate in the US has dropped by nearly 60% since the
Wow.
1970s. And the median age for first time marriages has increased for both women and men.
For a variety of reasons, I think
What's
upper
the
middle
age?
class Americans are just much more likely to be kind of intentional about sequencing their lives in terms of education first, work second, marriage third, and the baby carriage after all of that. So they're just in a much better.
Got to. It's so expensive nowadays. I mean, you can't even go to Walmart anymore without spending at least $50 to $100. Like I remember going to Walmart and if you bought $50 worth of groceries, it looked like $50 worth of groceries. If you bought $100 worth of groceries, it looked like $100 worth of groceries. Now you got people spending that type of money on like maybe 5 or 6 items. So I mean, it makes sense that people are kind of like, okay, let me go get my career up. Let me go ahead and get my finances up, so that way I can do the whole marriage thing or have kids. So makes sense.
Spot, both financially and relationship wise, when they go ahead and have kids.
The cost of marriage usually starts with a wedding. This is a tiny wedding cake I bought in London for $50, thankfully just within our production budget. But if you wanted the same cake, but big enough to serve 100 people, then you would have to pay at least $250. Add in the price of a venue, a tuxedo, a dress, drinks and music, and suddenly you're looking at a very large bill.
Getting married is just the tip of the iceberg. Starting a family adds all sorts of economic commitments.
Yep.
It typically starts with a house, followed by a car, maybe kids, which means more expenses like books, toys, and family vacations. In a nutshell, you become a fully engaged consumer in the economy. Some people choose not to go down this road, while others simply can't afford to.
Right.
From about 1980 to the present, there's been no greater increase in family instability than there has been among this working class demographic in the US, sort of in basically the second quintile of the family income distribution. I think there are a couple of big factors here in play. So one major factor, of course, is sort of the changing economy
Mm-hmm.
and the way in which working class men are less likely to be stably employed.
American adults from high income groups have maintained a stable marriage rate since the 1970s. But among the middle and especially lower income groups, marriages declined to 66 and 38% respectively.
I wonder if that goes along with kind of like what my mom and my dad used to tell me growing up. I know personally they would always tell us that um, financial issues is like the number one thing that would break up a couple, break up a marriage. So I wonder if that's why, like, if you're in the middle income, low income, that's why divorce is like more likely, because like not only do you have the stress of going through life, but you also have the stress of, okay, we're also not financially stable. So I wonder if that's playing a role into it.
By 2018. Since the 1970s, there has been a decline in the number of American men without college degrees in the US labor force. The last 50 years also saw their earnings stagnate and decrease.
By contrast, we're seeing women having a more secure footing in today's sort of more service post-industrial economy. And so we know that marriage is many things, but it's also in part a financial undertaking. And so when you have men who are losing ground financially in this working class demographic and women who are gaining ground, I think they both kind of see that the guy is less marriageable. And so they're less likely to kind of get married in the first place and more likely to get divorced in the second place.
Another phenomenon that affects marriage is the rise of secularism in modern societies. Here in the UK, for example, 1 in 3 people say they have no religion, up 25% since 2011. And this is a key reason why marriage is no longer the only basis for family formation.
In 2021, 51% of births in the UK took place outside of a marriage. 42% of children in the European Union and 40% of children in the US are also born to unmarried parents. For countries where this is acceptable socially, the decline in marriage does not necessarily spell trouble for the country's demographics.
So not getting married,
But in other
having
parts
kids
of
out
the
of
world,
marriage.
most notably in East and South Asia, marriage and birth rates are highly correlated. Only 2.3% of babies are born outside of marriage in Japan, which means if people don't
It's
get
not
married,
socially acceptable.
they're also very unlikely to have children. This is a problem for Japan, the world's third largest economy and home to the world's oldest population.
The fall in birth rate is something that happens in many countries. Governments all over the world are worried because of economic implications.
From state-funded matchmaking apps to marriage support concierges, the Japanese government has introduced several incentives to promote marriage, but so far, nothing has worked.
There is this, financial constraint that people feel that they may not be able to support a family and raise children.
A similar problem is troubling authorities in neighboring China, which registered the fewest marriages.
I felt that one too. I think that's a big reason why, like, at least for me, like when I date and stuff, like, don't get me wrong, like I do want to get married. I do. However, in the back of my mind, I always worry about, the what if. What if I can't support, a family of 3, 4, however many kids, or, whatever path I go down. What if I can't support that? We're living in times where people are getting laid off left and right, people who've been employed by the same job for 10 plus years and then being told tomorrow they got to go. So it's like, what if I have kids, have a wife, and it's just like, now I can't support them, I think that's like one of my biggest fears, and what kind of like keeps me from hitting the brakes a little bit.
In 2022, since public records began, the country also saw its birth rate fall to a record low the same year.
By 2050, China's working population will reduce by 10%, and not enough, babies born to fill that gap. And the, dependent population, those who reach retirement age, will double.
In a sharp reversal from its former one-child policy, the Chinese government encourages marriage and childbirth since 2016. But this time, it's Chinese women who have reservations about married life.
Really?
And the women tend to spend significantly much more time than their husbands in childcare and other related care. And also the Chinese workplace is not very women-friendly. And why women don't want to get married, why women don't want to have children, is because this society is not women-friendly, the society is not child-friendly.
Men talk about the personal freedom that they get for not getting married, but at the same time, they are really worried that if they were to set up a family, they will not be able to sustain a family with the income.
The Western heart is closing in an important extent to marriage and family life. And that's going to have a huge impact, not just economically, but also obviously socially and emotionally on young adults today.
And that's pretty much the the end of the video. But I will say this, everything they said I think is very, very true. We're living in uncertain times where stuff is more expensive. People are getting laid off, and unfortunately we don't really have an economy or society that's really promoting marriage. Stuff is at an all-time high right now. People are already struggling as it is, and I think when we start adding on the whole experience of getting married and having kids, I think that frightens a lot of men and women. But you guys tell me what you guys think, below in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, we're just gonna keep going, and y'all have a good one. All right.